The kitchen faucet dripped in slow, rhythmic taps that echoed too loud in the silence. He stood there, barefoot on the cool tile, staring at the mug on the edge of the counter. It was just a mug. Pale blue, ceramic, chipped on the lip. Her mug. Always her mug. She called it her thinking cup and claimed coffee tasted better in it. That was her thing, sentiment woven into the smallest objects, giving weight to things others wouldn't notice. So when he picked it up and saw the faint half ring of lipstick, red, too red, it didn't register at first. But then came the detail that didn't make sense. The handle was facing the wrong direction. She was left-handed. Always had been. She'd even joked once that she'd leave him if he ever messed with her mug handle orientation. Petty, specific, obsessive, but consistent. And now it was wrong. Placed down like a right-hander had just finished using it. That was all. No crash. No shouting. Just a mug. But the room changed. He turned slowly, taking in the space as if seeing it from a new angle, one shift to the left of normal. The chair was pulled too far out. Not dramatically, just far enough that you couldn't explain it away as casual. Her phone was charging, screen dark, but something about its position felt posed. He glanced toward the coat rack near the door. Her scarf was missing. The one she always wore in the evenings, even in warm weather, because it had been her mother's. She never went out without it. But she hadn't said anything about going out. And her keys were still there. The scarf gone. The keys still hanging. Contradictions that didn't scream. They whispered, slowly clawing at logic. He walked to the living room, his steps soundless on the hardwood, and stood beside the bookshelf. She'd rearranged it last week, moving her favorites to the eye-level shelf. There it was, Norwegian Wood. A book she once told him was too intimate to reread. It belongs to another version of me, she'd said with a strange smile. A sadder one. That book knows things it shouldn't. He'd never questioned the phrasing. She had a poetic way of talking, always did. But now, as his fingers brushed the worn spine, he saw something pressed between the pages. Not a bookmark. A receipt. He pulled it out gently. A boutique florist across town. 2 days ago. Time-stamped noon. 1 lavender stem, 2 white tulips. Her favorites, yes. But the note scrawled in black ink wasn't in his handwriting. To the version of you I love most. J. He stared at the looped initials. Not just unfamiliar, but practiced. Intimate. And there, beneath the ink, faint impressions of previous notes. This wasn't the first. The faucet dripped again, louder now, like time tapping against the stillness. He set the receipt down, careful, reverent, as if the paper could explode if mishandled. He didn't speak, didn't pace. He just stood, letting the quiet surround him, holding the knowledge like a glass ornament in his chest, fragile, jagged, impossible to set down. He could already feel the shift in the air, the quiet conspiracy of detail working against her. Across the room, the fish tank light blinked. A glitch. It had done that once before when the power flickered during a storm. He remembered resetting it, watching her fuss over the temperature settings like they were guarding an infant. Now, the glitch was back, and she hadn't mentioned it. But she always mentioned it. His gaze dropped to the couch. Her blanket, the one she always pulled over her legs while watching documentaries, was there, folded too neatly. Almost hotel neat. There was an unfamiliar indentation in the cushion beside it. Not sharp, not fresh, but lingering. Someone had sat there recently, not often, but long enough to become part of the room's memory. He crossed back to the kitchen, opened the fridge. Leftover pasta, untouched wine. But then he saw the new item tucked into the back corner. A brand of yogurt she hated. Tastes like regret, she used to joke. But there it was. One open, one missing. The expiration date was fresh. Too fresh. It hadn't come from any regular grocery trip. She'd bought it herself. For someone else. Or because someone else liked it. Either way, it didn't belong. He shut the fridge and leaned against the counter, staring at nothing. The silence pressed against his skull like static. The questions didn't form in words, just images, sensations, smells that weren't right. A shift in her perfume last week. More citrus, less vanilla. A note left out from her therapist that mentioned shared trauma unpacking. A phrase she'd never used with him. He looked back at the mug. The red mark now looked deliberate. Like a stamp. Like ownership. And he saw it for what it was, not evidence, but a message. Left behind by someone who hadn't been careful enough. Or someone who had. Either way, the handle facing right was the tell. That was where it started. Not with betrayal. Not with shouting. With a single turn, 20 degrees off. Enough to unravel everything. He didn't move. He didn't breathe. He just let the truth bloom inside him, slow and sickly, like rot in the walls you don't see until it breaks through the paint. The first crack had appeared, and it was enough. The mornings stayed normal longer than they should have. The routine didn't crack so much as it wore thin, like paint over water damage, holding up appearances while something underneath warped and swelled. She still brewed coffee, still hummed tunelessly in the kitchen, still kissed him goodbye, quick and soft, like nothing was wrong. And that was the thing. Nothing looked wrong. But every gesture felt hollowed out, like she was performing love with the muscle memory of a better version of herself. And he tried, at first, to take it as stress, work pressure, maybe some private battle she hadn't found the words for yet. But when she stopped finishing her stories mid-sentence, when she'd drift off during dinner with a smile plastered just a second too long, he knew better. Something was breaking. Quietly. Precisely. Like ice fracturing underfoot. She started talking about space more, about her time, and personal clarity, in phrases that sounded like they came from a self-help blog. At first, he nodded, supportive. He'd always been the give-and-take kind, never possessive. But her version of space was subtraction. Conversation shrank. Plans were now suggestions. She spoke about their future like it was something happening offstage, while she worked on herself in the spotlight. Don't take it personally, she'd say, with a careful tone, as if kindness could dull the blade. I just need to focus inward right now. But she wasn't turning inward. She was turning away. The smile stayed, but the laugh died. Her phone now face down. Notifications no longer made noise. Once, she'd giggle when he walked by and steal his charger. Now she just said, "Oh, I've got my own," even when hers was clearly dying. She'd once shared her Spotify playlists, naming them things like Us on Rainy Afternoons. But now, she wore headphones while she cooked. Quiet little earbuds, light and smooth, like the lies they didn't talk about. Music he didn't get to hear. Conversations he couldn't decode. She swore they helped her focus. He swore she wasn't home anymore. One night, she brought up boundaries over tacos. I think we're too enmeshed, she said, like she was describing two coworkers with overlapping duties. I want to be intentional with my emotional energy. He didn't answer. Just nodded slowly, chewing the same bite until the tortilla turned to ash. She looked relieved, mistaking his silence for agreement. That's when he realized she was no longer listening, only hoping he wouldn't speak. Things started slipping. She forgot his brother's birthday dinner. Forgot the pet name she used to call him when they watched old movies. Forgot the password they set together for their shared streaming account, the one that was half a joke from their first trip. He said nothing when she asked him for it again, watching as her eyes darted, calculating whether she'd just exposed something. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes either. Let her wonder. And still, he tried. He booked a weekend getaway to the coast, just 2 nights, something quiet. She agreed with too much enthusiasm too fast, like someone accepting a gift they'd already decided to return. On the drive, she scrolled her phone with brightness cranked too high. The sun caught her face, and he studied her in profile, trying to remember if she ever looked like that with him before, remote, careful, like she was posing for a stranger who might be watching. When they got to the hotel, she insisted on separate beds for better sleep. He nodded, biting his tongue. That night, her phone lit up at 2:03 a.m., casting a soft glow against the wall. She didn't stir. He didn't need to look. He already knew whatever was on that screen wasn't for him. The false climax came on a Wednesday. He'd come home early to grab a folder he'd forgotten for a meeting. She was supposed to be at work. Her shoes weren't by the door. Her car was gone. The apartment echoed with silence, save for a faint hum from the bedroom. He stepped inside and noticed the closet, one of the drawers half open. Not hers. His. A sock draped over the edge, out of place. He moved closer and saw the corner of a small, folded note tucked into the back of the drawer. It wasn't addressed. Just folded, clean and crisp, like it had been waiting. His fingers hovered, then took it. The handwriting wasn't hers. Not quite. Or maybe it was, written in a rushed, altered style. The letters leaned right, slanted, and nervous. It read only 3 words. You don't know. That was it. Not a confession. Not a denial. Just a breadcrumb with teeth. It didn't accuse. It didn't beg. It simply existed. And it changed everything. He put it back, careful to crease it the same way. Closed the drawer. Straightened the sock. Then walked out, slow and deliberate. When she returned hours later, smiling too brightly, saying traffic had been Nuts. He watched her the way you watch a stranger talking about your home like it belongs to them. She moved through the space like nothing had shifted. But to him, the whole room leaned sideways now. And she was no longer centered. He stopped asking questions. Stopped suggesting things. Stopped reaching. And when she laughed, too loud at a sitcom she never used to watch, he didn't even flinch. He just watched. Silent. Still. Like someone standing just outside the blast radius, waiting to see what survives. It was a Tuesday, ordinary by all appearances, except for the rain that hadn't been forecast. It tapped lightly against the kitchen windows as he returned from the store, clutching a brown paper bag with 3 things she'd texted him for: oat milk, her favorite dark chocolate, and those sea salt chips I like, the wavy ones. He'd memorized the brand, the shape of the bag, the exact aisle. They used to joke about how he knew her cravings better than she did. He didn't mind. He liked knowing her that way. But now he walked in and set the bag on the counter like it weighed 100 pounds, because sitting beside her coffee cup, her cup again, was a receipt. That alone wouldn't have meant anything. It could have been his. Could have been from days ago. But he hadn't used that cafe in over a year, and she hadn't either, not since they both swore off it after the barista mixed up her order and laughed about it. They called it the Death Cafe since. But there it was, from that place, timestamped just after noon, her name scribbled on the side in the loopy handwriting of someone trying too hard to be casual. But it wasn't the receipt itself. It was the message written in pen at the bottom. Not from a barista. No smiley face, no drink code. Just 6 words, barely legible but burned into his brain the moment he saw them. You looked like you meant it. That was all. No signature. No context. Just intimacy without explanation. A sentence only 2 people would understand. The kind of message someone leaves when they think the moment matters more than getting caught. She'd left it there like clutter, tucked under the edge of the cup as if her own guilt had fallen asleep. And that was when he stopped doubting. Not when he found the receipt. Not when he read the words. But when he realized she hadn't even tried to hide it. She didn't believe he'd notice, or maybe she didn't care. And that told him more than any confession ever could. She thought he was still in the fog. Still playing the part of the tired husband with too much trust and too little instinct. But the second he saw those words, the weight of months collapsed into silence. Everything aligned. The mug facing the wrong way. The forgotten details. The new laugh. The separate playlists. The 2 perfect boundaries. The shrinking intimacy masquerading as self-care. And now, this note, this perfectly careless note, was the final stitch in a wound she didn't know had already turned septic. He didn't touch it. Didn't pocket it for evidence. He stood still, staring at the counter like it was a crime scene, and something inside him reset. His pulse slowed. His shoulders settled. And where panic might have risen before, there was only calculation. He wasn't angry. He wasn't even sad. He was done. She came home an hour later, cheeks flushed, hair damp, umbrella dripping by the door. She kissed his cheek without waiting for eye contact and walked into the kitchen humming, stopping only when she saw the receipt. Her pause was microscopic, half a breath, a blink, and then she reached for it, too quickly, casually, but not fast enough. He watched her from the hallway mirror's reflection, watched her fingers tremble just once before she slipped it into her coat pocket. She turned back toward the fridge. "Did you get the chips?" she asked, voice light, too light, cracking just slightly at the end like a singer missing a note. He answered without turning. "Yeah, that was all. No warmth. No curiosity. Just confirmation." She didn't push. She thought it had passed. Thought he hadn't seen. Thought her lie had dissolved into the fog she'd built between them. But he wasn't in that fog anymore. He had stepped out of it the moment he read those 6 words. He didn't want her to know yet. Let her keep pretending. Let her think he was still predictable. Because the difference now was that he wasn't trying to fix anything. He was mapping exits. Tracing back her movements. Rewiring the house in his mind. Mentally locking away the things he cared about. His journals, the deed, the digital copies of their financials. He knew where her soft spots were. The people she lied to, not just him. The versions of herself she showed to others. He knew how to build a collapse she wouldn't recover from. Not through confrontation. Not through drama. But through exposure. She wanted growth? He'd give her the kind that stripped bark from trees. She wanted space? He'd clear the whole forest. War doesn't always start with a sword. Sometimes it starts with a smile so still it stops time. And when she turned back toward him, asking if he wanted tea, he smiled. Slow. Cold. War was already here. She just hadn't noticed yet. She found him in the dining room, sitting at the table he'd sanded and stained with his own hands, flipping through a folder he hadn't opened in years. Tax documents, insurance forms, bank statements. At first, she didn't notice what he was looking at, just that he looked calm. Too calm. She breezed in, phone in hand, still scrolling, voice sweetened with practiced charm. "Hey, babe, dinner plans with Ratch just moved to Friday. Are you cool with that?" He didn't answer right away. He closed the folder slowly, deliberately, and set it down. Then looked at her. Really looked at her. And said, "How long has it been going on?" The question landed like a gunshot in a quiet chapel. She froze, a flicker of something surprise, guilt, calculation flashed across her face, gone before it finished forming. "What are you talking about?" she asked, soft laugh curling under her words like fog. He didn't blink. "You know exactly what I'm talking about." She rolled her eyes, already slipping into the rhythm she thought she controlled. "You're being paranoid again. Is this about the receipt?" God, it was a coffee. It's called having a friend. She added just enough bite to the word friend to sound condescending. But he only tilted his head. "So that message? You looked like you meant it. Was that friendly too?" That hit harder. Her mouth twitched. "I don't know what that's supposed to mean," she said, arms crossing. Defensive now. Preparing her fortress of half-truths. "People write stupid things. You're blowing it way out of what?" He interrupted, voice low but piercing. "Out of proportion? Out of reality? Or out of the perfect little script you've been writing while I paid the bills and played the role?" She scoffed. "Here we go. So I'm the villain now because I needed space? Because I dared to have boundaries?" "No," he said, leaning forward, eyes locked. "You're the villain because you weaponized them. You didn't ask for space. You built a second life inside it. You didn't set boundaries. You built walls so I couldn't see who else you were letting in." Her face flushed, but her voice rose with false calm. "That's not fair. You act like I did something to you. Like I cheated on purpose. Do you even hear yourself? This is exactly why I couldn't talk to you, because everything becomes some kind of interrogation." He stood, slowly. No anger. No threats. Just gravity. "You couldn't talk to me because I'm the only person who knows when you're lying. That's what scared you. Not control. Not pressure. Truth." She took a step back. "I didn't lie. You lied every time you said you loved me and looked past me," he cut in. "Every time you told me we were growing while you were out rehearsing new smiles for someone else. You used my silence as permission. You mistook my trust for stupidity." Her lips tightened. Her eyes shimmered, but not with tears, yet. "You don't know what I've been dealing with. You think this was easy for me? You've been emotionally distant for months. You haven't touched me in weeks." His reply came without hesitation. "Because you weren't mine anymore. You left this marriage the day you started rationing your affection and calling it self-care. You've been fading yourself out of the frame like a coward. Don't turn that into my failure. That broke something." Her face hardened, mask cracking at the edges. "So what now? You want to humiliate me? Ruin everything? You want to make this public? Go ahead. Be the bitter husband. Tell everyone I'm the villain. That'll make things so much easier for you, won't it?" "No," he said. "I'm not going to say a word. I'm going to let your absence speak. I'm going to let the people you've lied to piece it together. I don't need to destroy your image. You've already built the mirror that's going to shatter." She faltered, breath shaky now. "I didn't mean for it to go this far. I didn't know how to stop." "He made me feel anew," he said, finishing her sentence. "He made you feel new. And that was all it took to throw away someone who made you feel safe. Someone who memorized the way your voice changed when you were tired. Someone who gave you the silence you asked for, only to realize you were filling it with someone else's name." Her voice cracked. "I didn't want to hurt you." His gaze didn't move. "You just wanted me to keep loving you while you tried on replacements. You didn't want to hurt me. You just didn't care if you did." Silence pressed between them. Thick. Final. Her arms dropped. Her shoulders slumped. She looked smaller. Exposed. Not ruined, not yet, but unraveling. "So what now?" she whispered. And that was when he delivered the last blow, not with rage, but with presence. He stepped forward, just enough to meet her eyes, and said, "Now I watch. I watch the person you really are show up. I won't scream. I won't beg. But I'll be here. And you're going to see yourself through my eyes now. Not the eyes of someone who wanted to believe you, but the eyes of someone who finally doesn't." She blinked, lips parting, a protest dying in her throat. But he didn't stay to hear it. He didn't need to. Because she'd already heard the one thing she couldn't talk her way out of herself. She didn't speak at first. She stood there trembling, her arms crossed over her chest like she was trying to hold herself together from the outside in. Around them, the guests pretended to scroll their phones, stir their drinks, look anywhere but the wreckage unfolding across the room. The music had faded into background static, forgotten. He hadn't moved since delivering the final words. Just stood there, still, as if daring her to lie again. And then it started. First with the scoff, the shaking head, the high-pitched laugh that rang too sharp. "You're overreacting," she said, eyes flashing, voice cracking as she tried to armor herself with disbelief. "It was one mistake. One. Do you really think you haven't ever done something wrong in this marriage?" He didn't respond. Not yet. So she pushed further, stepping closer like proximity might reset the dynamic. "You're not some saint, you know. You shut down. You disappear into your work. You act like being quiet makes you holy, but it just makes you impossible to reach." He looked at her then, not with hate, with something far colder, indifference. "No," he said softly. "It made me easy to ignore." Her mouth opened, then closed. The silence stretched. She tried again. "This is punishment, isn't it? You're trying to break me. You want to make me feel like I'm nothing. Is that it? You're not hurt. You're just bitter that you didn't see it first." "I saw it," he replied, still calm. "You just thought I wouldn't do anything about it." That stung. She shifted, her face reddening as her voice rose. "You think you'll find better? You think there's some perfect woman out there who's going to worship you for being cold and distant and passive-aggressive? You'll die alone, staring at the walls of your perfect little house, wondering why no one stayed." He almost smiled. Not because it was funny, because it was predictable. "Better isn't hard to find," he said. "I just need someone who doesn't mistake silence for weakness, or kindness for stupidity." Her face twisted. "You're cruel. You're being cruel." "You taught me how," he replied. "By showing me what love looks like when it's weaponized. When affection becomes currency. When your growth means my erasure." She stepped back like he'd slapped her. The room felt too hot now, her breaths too fast. "You're twisting everything," she whispered. "We were broken before this. We were already falling apart. And instead of trying to build anything," he said, "you snuck off to see how other men lived. You left pieces of yourself in places I'd never be allowed. And you came home expecting me to thank you for the crumbs." She was crying now. Not loud. Not the sobs of the innocent. But the shaking, shame-filled tears of someone realizing too late they're no longer in control. "I didn't want to lose you," she said, voice barely audible. I didn't feel seen. I didn't feel wanted. I thought maybe if someone else looked at me the way you used to, you could skip the hard part," he finished. "The part where real love is inconvenient. Where it demands effort. Where it sees you when you're unlovable and stays anyway. You traded that for flattery and thought I'd wait here with open arms." Her knees buckled slightly as she leaned on the edge of the table. People were definitely watching now, though pretending not to. The illusion was gone. Her mask had cracked in front of them all, and he had made no move to shield her. She looked up, makeup running now, desperation leaking through every pore. "Please," she said. "We can fix this. I'll go to therapy. I'll end it. I'll do anything. I don't want to lose you." For the first time, his voice softened. But it didn't warm. "You already lost me. You just didn't notice until everyone else could see it too." She covered her face, hands trembling, shoulders quaking. The room was dead quiet now. You could hear the ice melt in untouched glasses. She tried to speak, but words failed her. And that's when he stepped away, not toward the door, not toward her, but to the far end of the room where he picked up his coat. Not in a hurry. Not making a scene. Just ready to be done. She turned to look at him one last time, eyes begging, lips forming the start of another plea. But he didn't meet her gaze. He didn't say anything. He left her with the one thing she couldn't argue with, his silence. And in that silence, she collapsed. The fall wasn't dramatic. It didn't come in one great collapse, but in quiet, creeping erosion. She didn't notice it at first, the way people stopped answering with warmth, the way texts were met with "seen" and nothing more. Her lover, the man she once claimed saw her better than her husband ever did, ghosted her within a week of the confrontation. He didn't even argue. Just blocked her on everything and disappeared like smoke from a match blown out too soon. Her office, once her arena of influence, shifted beneath her feet. Meetings were rescheduled without her, clients reassigned. HR never used the word reputation, but it lingered between the lines of their polite suggestion that she take some time to reflect. Then the termination letter came, clean, corporate, clinical. Her LinkedIn profile still bragged about strategy and innovation, but the endorsement stopped. Her name, once tied to polished presentations and smiling confidence, became a quiet warning and whispers she couldn't trace. Friends, the ones who toasted her ambition and fed her justifications, evaporated. Some out of shame, others out of self-preservation. One by one, doors closed. Even her sister, who once idolized her, stopped replying. "I can't deal with this right now," was the last message. And she couldn't deal with it. So she turned to the only place where she believed her name still meant something. The man she betrayed. She called once. No answer. Then again. A third time. Voicemail. Her message was tearful, disjointed. Please talk to me. We were soulmates, weren't we? We knew each other. You loved me. I know I ruined it. I know, but I still love you." The next day, she left a note under his door. The handwriting was different. Smaller. Almost afraid. "You said once we'd survive anything. That we were built different. Maybe we still are. Please. Just one coffee. Just let me see your face." He read it and left it on the counter until the sun bleached the ink to nothing. Because she wasn't the woman who left. She wasn't even the woman who lied. She was just a stranger now. A stranger with a voice he used to recognize in the dark, who became someone capable of rehearsing grief while already planning her next version. She reached out again 2 weeks later, standing on the sidewalk outside his apartment. She looked thinner, older, like regret had hollowed her out. When he saw her through the window, she smiled, unsure, pleading. He didn't open the door, didn't shake his head, didn't scowl, just looked at her with the eyes of someone who no longer had anything to lose. Not because she took it from him, but because he rebuilt his life in a version that didn't include her. And in that moment, she understood. She wasn't his enemy. She wasn't even his memory. She was irrelevant. She backed away slowly, realizing that being hated might have been easier. But being nothing? That was the true price. And he closed the curtain, made his tea, and returned to his book, not with relief, not with satisfaction, just with peace. The kind that comes when a storm has passed and the silence feels earned. Thanks for listening. Let me know where you're watching from and what you would have done if it were your wife.